Welcome to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production. Hi, I'm Carol Bissett, a crime writer, and I invite you with my co-presenters, Liz Hedgecock and Mike Jackson, each week to our conversations on all things murderous. Hello everyone and welcome to this latest episode of Only Murders in My Mind. It's Thursday, it's 5 p.m, and I have, for a change, Mike Jackson.
Oh, sorry, Carol. I was surprised then. I usually come last. And how are you, Carol?
I'm well, and our lovely Liz is in the other seat. So we're hello. We're going to have our usual mayhem. First of all,
as you mean to go on.
Let's just put all our raiders off.
But,
Readers.
First of
what
all,
am I talking about? Listeners.
Yeah. First of all, Mike, I want to ask you a question.
Go on then, Carol.
Why have elephants got big ears?
So that they can hide in a bowl of custard.
Because Noddy wouldn't pay the ransom.
Oh dear.
You know, remember the joke? Is this going to be a new thing?
I hope not.
Do you know when you have that sort of moment when something comes to you, and we were trying to. Mike wasn't trying to remember this joke. He was going like,
no,
just
don't.
No. So our theme today is...
we've got a theme?
Loosely speaking. Our theme today is Miss Marple. We all love Miss Marple, don't we? Say yes, please. Nobody can see you nodding.
Well, we often go back to Agatha Christie, don't we?
We love Agatha.
She's one of our favourites.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd donate... we dedicate this episode just to that wonderful character, because I know she is absolutely loved by millions of people across the world, really. So,
and if our listeners will bear with us, we will get better. Honestly, either that or we'll just call a halt and start again, because we seem to be rambling all over the place so far.
What us?
What we don't do that. So Miss Marple was, I think I've got this right, was based loosely on a friend of Agatha Christie's step grandmother. That's a convoluted relationship, and her name was Margaret Miller. Can anybody else agree on that?
I read something that it was based on. I didn't know it was a step grandmother. I read that it was based on a grandmother and the grandmother's friends.
It was the friend. Yeah,
I thought it was the friends of.
But I think it is.
Agatha started off as Agatha Miller, didn't she?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, of course
So,
she
yes.
did. Yeah, and I think having done a bit more research, she does say that Miss Marple is a combination of many people of that age group that she met when she was a child. And I can see that, can't you? When you look at Miss Marple, you can sort of... I mean, I know I'm probably, sort of on the mature side of my age now. But I can remember ladies like that. When my mum used to go to church and have tea with the ladies group. And I can remember people with the hats on and, going... Well, I don't really like that new man that's moved in down the road. What do you think, Dorothy? That sort of thing.
Yeah,
you don't get it now.
Well, they knew everything, didn't they?
Yes.
I think back to where my grandma lived. She'd lived there for donkey's years, and everybody else in the street had lived there a long time. Everybody knew, and that wasn't a quaint village. That was a busy town. But everybody knew everybody. It was a row of terraced houses. People didn't lock doors and so on. They used to just walk in and out of each other's houses for cups of tea and what have you. And, if you were to talk to my grandma about Mrs. So-and-so 3 doors down, she could tell you everything about her. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
They just knew everything.
Yeah, it was like that. Community was like that.
Yes,
we've lost that.
Yes, we have.
That's gone in most places. I mean, I lived in a small town in Cumbria, and it was very much, if you were born and bred there, not if you were an incomer. You could be an incomer for 45 years and you were still an incomer.
Yes, yeah.
But if you were born and bred there was this network of people, and somebody said if one of us is cut, everybody bleeds. It was that sort of thing. But on the flip side, you couldn't get away with anything either, you know. And I remember I lived near to a police officer. He was actually CID. He helped me with some of the research for one of my first books. And we didn't lock our doors where we lived until we went to bed at night. The only time we ever locked it was when we went to bed at night when the house was completely empty. And we got up one morning and we'd forgotten to lock the door, and I looked at my friend's car and her window was open and the keys were still in the ignition, and we never worried about it, you know, because this Bobby that lived near us said, "Oh, the local thief's in prison at the moment. You don't need to worry."
Just the one.
Just the one. Yeah.
But I suppose thinking about that, it's really tempting, isn't it, to go back and say, "Oh, it was all very different then." With Miss Marple, though, I don't necessarily have an image of her as being at the centre of a very close-knit community, if you know what I mean. She feels like she's sort of, I don't know, on the outskirts almost, watching life go on.
Yeah. She's a people watcher.
She's an observer, isn't she, rather than a, you know. Yes. And I know when I read some of the research, it said that when she was first written, her character came over as a nosy Parker who wasn't that likeable. And then over the years, as she wrote, as Agatha Christie wrote more, she became a nicer, kinder person.
I imagine. I wonder if that's because Agatha thought I could do a lot with this character.
Yeah,
but I can't stand her the way she is, so I'm going to soften her edges a bit.
It could well be that, you know. And some people do soften.
Because we know from Poirot that she, she had reservations about him. So maybe with Miss Marple, she thought, I'm not making that mistake again.
Yeah, she's moulded her.
It appears that she never meant to make Miss Marple. I mean, Miss Marple started out in a book of short stories.
She did, yeah.
And that was the intention. That was it. And it was only, again, the clamouring.
This is like me saying I'm just writing a standalone.
It's the readers, again, were just clamouring for more and more of Miss Marple. And that's why she wrote more of Miss Marple. But she had no intention of doing that in the first place. It was just a character that she created for this. Did you know that the book was called 13 Problems?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know of that.
A book of 6 short stories.
Yeah. I think she did quite a lot of short stories,
yes.
did Agatha. And even, I think The Big Four is an example of, it wasn't originally a novel, it was 4 linked short stories that she kind of linked up with a bit of plot, because, I think...
A bit of knitting wool.
Well, The Big Four, and I think it's Poirot Mystery. So there's these big 4 characters who presumably were the protagonists in the separate stories, and they're all kind of knitted together with a bit of a beginning and an ending on. So, and I imagine there were more markets for short stories in those days because more periodicals.
Yes.
So,
I tell you what I did find intriguing, taking us right back to present day writers, is that...
Can you go back to present day writers?
Pardon?
Or would you go forward?
I suppose from my thinking I was going backwards.
Fair enough. I don't know what this says about us.
Nothing unusual in my thinking going backwards, trust me. But apparently that short book of 13 Problems was six short stories. And apparently the 6 friends were having a sociable evening at Miss Marple's charming house when the conversation gets round to unsolved mysteries, and they decide to form a club called the Tuesday Night Club.
Oh, really?
That's interesting.
It just made me think of Richard Osmond and his
Thursday Murder
Club.
Yeah.
Now
everything comes round and goes round.
Now I'm wondering if Sheryl Crow's Tuesday Night Music Club was also based on.
Yeah.
So hang on, if there's 13 problems, why are there 6 short stories?
I don't know. It's just called, the book is called The 13 Problems.
Fair enough.
Maybe some were easier to solve than others.
Yeah, maybe one of them was the servant problem. That comes up quite a lot.
Yeah,
it does, Miss Marple.
Miss Marple, yeah.
I like some of them. Apparently, some of the short stories had titles like The Bloodstained Pavement and the Herb of Death.
Is that going to be coriander, do you reckon? Everyone hates that.
I've ever seen a blood on the pavement anywhere, and I'm thinking, was that a nosebleed or has somebody been stabbed?
It does ask I don't know the answer.
Your clinical background coming in there, Carol.
But it is an interesting question. I wonder why it was called the 13 Problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something we need to. Maybe something one of our listeners could
Yes.
find out for us. And,
Can you not be bothered, Mike?
I can-
Is that what you're saying?
No, I was trying to pass it on to our listeners, and so they might want to.
We want some
leave
more
a comment.
interaction. Yes, we do.
Or I couldn't be bothered to do it myself.
Yeah. No, we get some lovely comments about our podcast, which thank you very much. But as I say, we ask for questions as well, and maybe in one of the episodes soon we can collate some and answer them.
That's a good idea.
That'd
Yeah, because
be
we do get some
interesting.
questions.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but
Whether we know the
answer.
answers is completely
Well,
different.
yes, there is that. Maybe we can ask the listeners to tell us.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
It would,
Here are a series of questions. If you could give us your answers, that could be a podcast episode.
all,
in the
all
future.
on its own. Yeah.
Anyway, back to Miss Marple.
Miss Marple. Yeah. So the first full length feature novel was The Murder at the Vicarage. I think we all know that one.
Oh, yes.
I found that quite. It was it? Would you say it was a close circle murder? That one.
Certainly a very close-knit community. I have to say, I don't know that one as well as some of the others.
Yeah.
But what's your favourite Miss Marple story?
The one which goes on the island, and I don't know what the name of it is. She's on holiday, and that might have been written by. I presume it was written by Agatha Christie. She goes off to that. Her nephew, who she mentioned.
Raymond.
Yes,
Raymond
who
West.
Apparently
The literary man.
he pops up in the short stories, the 13
Yes,
Problems.
yes.
That's the first time he
Yeah,
pops up.
he'd paid for her to go and have this lovely holiday on this island, and there was a murder on the island, and that's when she meets Ian Fleming, and
Right.
the man who's doing the talk for the hotel people says, "My name's Bond, James Bond."
Okay.
And he's talking about butterflies.
It should have been birds, really.
It should.
should be,
Maybe
yes.
it was birds, but because Ian Fleming sat next to Miss Marple in this, and he goes, I believe you write books. And he says, yes, I write spy books. He said, but I need a good, strong name for my main character. And when this guy says that, he's there with his notebook going, taking notes. So, yeah.
I was wondering if that's a Caribbean mystery.
It probably
Maybe.
is. Yeah, it probably is. But I enjoyed. What about the people who played her? So many actresses. I shouldn't say. I should say actors. We don't say actresses and actors now, do we? Actors.
The thing is, when I think of Miss Marple, I think of Joan Hickson.
Yes.
And back in the day, you probably would have said actress about her.
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely
Yes.
would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Geraldine McEwen played it for quite a while, didn't
Right.
she?
Yes, I think I completely missed that one.
My favourite is Julia Mackenzie. Is it Mackenzie?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the States, Angela Lansbury played her, and Helen
Now
Hayes.
that I would like to see.
Yeah.
Apparently, going back to the short stories where they first introduced Miss Marple, in the United States, the book wasn't called the 13 whatever it is.
Problems.
It was called the Tuesday Club Murders.
It gets better and better, doesn't it?
Whether a certain modern writer spotted that.
Yeah. So it's all about. What is it they say? There's only so many plots that just. Seven.
I think that can change depending on who's talking to you, but certainly I heard that there are only sort of 7 plots,
And all variations of them.
and everything that you read is a variation of them.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I presume you're the same as me when you're watching something at a film or a television series. You try and solve it before the end, or you just let the whole thing flow.
I
over
let the
you?
whole thing flow. I let everything flow over if I possibly can. I like. The other day I said to my dear wife, I've been thinking. And she said, oh, no, please don't. Let's not get into that silly territory, she said.
My husband twitches when I say that to him. You know that wall that's outside, and you can see him going, What do you mean? What do you want to do? So I try not to do that anymore. Yes, so she lived in St Mary Mead, and lots of people have got different theories why she called it that. Apparently there was a Mary Mead railway station, or a St Mary's railway that she used to go through on a regular basis.
See, now I heard that some people believe that she's called Miss Marple because Agatha Christie passed through Marple train station.
That's what I'm getting confused with.
Which would have been probably on the way to visit her sister.
Yeah.
In St Mary Mead. Oh,
Yeah.
right, sorry.
Well, her sister lived at Abney Hall, which is in Cheadle. Marple's not that
right.
far away. It's all Cheshire, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's all Cheshire, she says. Like, Cheshire's a tiny place.
Yes. Yeah.
But,
But it always one of the references that I liked was she was what was it? She was the female version of a gentleman detective. I don't know what my co-presenters think about that statement.
that's an interesting one. In terms of, yes, she's of independent means, she doesn't have a job, but also I don't think she has the freedom or quite the freedom of a gentleman. In some ways, she does have the freedom of a gentleman detective in that she's got an in, she's friends with someone very senior in the police, and she's she's clearly at least upper middle class, you'd say.
They
and
said she was at home with the gentry, even though she wasn't gentry.
Yeah.
She fitted into the circles.
Yeah, so in that way,
quite
she can
well.
kind of talk to anyone. And she can probably talk better to, for example, a maid or someone like that than perhaps a gentleman detective could.
Yes,
because she's got that kind of sympathetic female angle.
Yes, yeah.
But she can't go anywhere and do anything in the way that, for example, Sherlock Holmes can.
No, that wouldn't. I mean, her friend was the retired commissioner of the Met, Sir Henry Clithering, I think it is, and she would drop his name on a regular basis to the police that were dismissing her as being an old fuddy-duddy who was nosy, and they wanted her to keep her nose out. And then she'd go, "Well, my friend, Sir Henry," and
they're very useful.
Their face would change immediately.
I think the intriguing thing is, I mean, again, when I was looking at the background of this, Agatha Christie never gave Miss Marple a professional job. He never talked about the job she may have had in the past. But
she really never needed a job.
No, but there's intriguing details about her background. For example, she attended a finishing school in Italy.
Well, I suppose you would, wouldn't you, back in
so
the day?
it gives a clue as to sort of
how she was brought up,
where she was brought up. The social class that she mixed with.
And I read that she, after her faithful servant retired, then she took it upon herself, and we saw this in a few books, to take girls from the local orphanage and train them so that they could then go out into the world and get a job in service. So she sort of...
Which is kind of nice.
Yes.
It's that sort of, noblesse oblige, rich person, I have to do charitable work.
Yes.
That is part of my... Also, the kind of thing a vicar's wife might do.
Yes.
You can kind of see her fitting into that sort of sphere, can't you?
Yeah. And it was always, as I say, it was always that she'd be sat there, and it did say she would tune in. And I think as writers we do this, or maybe it's just because I'm nosy, but you tune in to conversations outside your sphere. They're not talking to you, they're talking. I mean, I heard a sentence when I was going to Manchester on Friday, and it was, yes, the decapitation is going to be on the 1st of March. I'm thinking, okay, I wish I knew what they were talking about.
Wow. Did you follow them?
No, they were sat in front. I think they were probably just reading something, hopefully out of a book or something. But that sort of thing makes you think. And she would do that, and the thing was, she would hear different conversations or the ends of conversations from different people, and then she could join all the dots where somebody else couldn't join all the dots.
Generally, because people overlooked her.
Yes. She was she was invisible.
Yes. Because that's what she chose to be.
Yes,
that way.
She just faded into the background with her knitting, and.
Or did she choose to be, or was she just invisible? Because as an elderly lady without particularly, I mean, she's got her friend, the police officer, very senior, but you don't kind of see her very much with close friends, or you don't see her interacting. She's kind of very solitary in some ways.
Yeah. I
mean, she's got her nephew and stuff.
She had a few friends that she went to visit and things like that. She'd go and stay with them and that sort of thing.
But you never get the sense she'd had the kind of friends where she'd tell them all her secrets.
No.
I
know there was one episode once, because again in the research it said she never married, she didn't have a family of her own. But I remember maybe even more than one episode, there was a reference very subtly to somebody that she'd lost in the First World War. I don't know whether you ever
certainly
saw that.
that there had been somebody in the
Yes.
past, as you say, that subtle reference.
Yeah, there was a picture of a man in uniform.
Very similar to Poirot when you think
Yes,
about
with
it.
with his
that romance
with the Russian countess.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of, so you think to yourself, well, perhaps she did have a fiance, and so many people didn't come back.
But going back to how she was, again, I was reading that when this 13 Problems book, this book of short stories, was first put together, these 6 friends decided to start this club called the Tuesday Night Club, and she was admitted to the club as a matter of politeness. Everyone thought she was too old and too unworldly to play any significant part, but she always came up with the right answer. So she started life like that. That was the character that Agatha Christie
people just consistently underestimate her.
Yeah. But I suppose, again, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Agatha Christie created that character just for that book of 6 short stories. And I think in her mind, she must have thought, that's it. I've created this little old lady. She's quite quaint. It'll fit nicely in these 6 stories. Full stop. And it's only because then people said, we like this, we want more. She then had to develop the whole scenario, didn't she?
And this is it. I mean, we all know when we're, as writers, we very often start off, you've done it with some of your characters have ended up with their own series that were lesser characters, weren't they, in previous books?
Yes.
Give us some examples, please.
Maisie Frobisher, she was a kind of a throwaway character.
Yeah.
Because she was just there as a convenient person to point out who a person of interest was.
Yeah.
I think it was her party that they were at, and she's going, oh yeah, that's so and so, no one to worry about. So she's very, offhand and snobbish. And she turned up again as a useful, oh yes, Maisie knows about spiritualism, we'll ask her, type thing. And then in book 4, we thought, oh yeah, having a spoilt brat would be quite handy. So then she was more in that because she was very convenient, and she could, distract people fussing about her costume for the masked ball and things like that, and get let down by a man, fun stuff. But she grew in that book, and she got more interesting. And I kind of thought, I would like to actually do something with.
And she got her own
that
series.
character. Yeah, so I asked Paula's permission. She went, do what you like.
Yeah.
So and that was how.
And that
Maisie Frobisher Mysteries came about.
And that's probably how Miss Marple.
Possibly, yes, because, as I say, she obviously started off as just this character that was going to be in 6 very short stories and developed into something much, much bigger.
Oh, she must have seen how what an interesting character she was compared to other people she'd written about.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the intrigue there. She, going back to about whether or not she had some sort of love in her life, it's all hinted at.
Yes.
Everything about her is hinted at. It's that hint of this upbringing of the finishing school. There's the hint of some chap in the past. But it's always just that hint which sort of continues that air of mystery and intrigue about her.
Yeah.
She's this little old lady, but...
Yeah.
And
sometimes you think, well, how did she get to know all this
stuff?
That's right.
Well, how did she get to be friends with the commissioner, for example?
Yes.
Like
well, yeah.
It's all, and that's what I think is quite clever. It's those questions that are there, but they're left. No, they're never answered.
Yeah.
How much you might want them to
it's
be.
It's just hanging there, isn't it, for you to think about yourself and make your own.
Draw your
own conclusions.
The other thing I like is that as the series progresses, Agatha Christie doesn't shy away from portraying Miss Marple as somebody who's getting older.
No.
Yes.
The whole age thing. She becomes physically weaker as the books go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though her mind is still razor sharp.
Yeah. And
a bit like me.
And things have moved on, so she uses the taxi service more.
Yes. Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, the maid has gone, so she's employing a succession of girls
and training them up, sort of thing.
And I mean, you see that with Poirot as well, don't you? You see him getting older.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, in one of the episodes towards the end of his character, I was quite upset, actually. But the age range for Miss Marple has been quoted at between 74 and latterly 90. And
She started life as an old lady.
yes, she
didn't
did.
she?
Yes,
A
you know,
fictional life.
What we've got
Thing is,
to
they were written over about 40 years.
Oh,
so.
yeah, so she did age well,
32,
didn't she?
1932 was
Yes,
the
the
first.
first one. Yeah, 1976, I think, was the last one. Is
Yeah.
it? Let me see.
That was written
Yeah.
too after Agatha Christie died.
Oh,
Hang
Oh,
on.
sorry, it was published.
That's
All
impressive.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
wonder whether
it was
she'd
this sort of
written that.
magic pen.
She had a
that just-
ghostwriter.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Yeah, I
Dear
wonder
me.
whether she wrote that last one earlier and just kind of kept it in reserve.
Apparently she did. She wrote
Yeah.
it
So
during...
I think she did that with Poirot.
Yeah, she did. She wrote it apparently during the Second World War alongside Poirot's final
Yeah.
novel.
Oh, I imagine she enjoyed writing Poirot's.
You can imagine going dot cross the T.
And the thing is too that I read was that whereas Poirot had an ending, you know, he was
Oh,
killed
yes.
off. Miss Marple's fate is left sort of in abeyance.
Yes.
You know, she
There
just
could have been
she
another
solves
route.
that problem,
Yeah.
and then she presumably just continues to live in St Mary Mead.
Yeah.
Who
Well, you can
knows?
imagine
It's
her
that
doing
intrigue
that,
again,
can't
isn't it?
you?
Yeah.
Just, very gently existing.
Yeah. Knitting and darning socks.
And
Things-
training up another maid.
Training up another
Yeah.
maid, yeah. I remember one of the ones I watched, and it probably was one of the later ones, and it was she brought to a couple together, you know, which she often did in her stories. You know, they used to very often be a male and a female that ended up together, sort of thing, and she was very. She seemed to be internalising something. She did look very sad, and it was towards, you know, sort of, and maybe that was like, I've never had this, and I never will now, sort of thing. That type of thing. One of the teachers I had at school, when I went to junior school, she had a brooch on, and it was an RAF brooch, and it had been her fiance, and he'd been killed in the Second World War, and she always wore it, and I thought that was really sad as well.
Well, Poirot always wore that.
His little rose holder.
Yes, which
yeah.
I think is linked to his
Somebody that he was
countess, wasn't it?
yeah, somebody he was
I
very
think so.
fond of.
I think she'd given it to.
That's
him,
right,
maybe.
yes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so there's some, and then there was the one where Hastings fell head over heels in love with somebody that was a ne'er-do-well, and I can't remember which one that was.
Wasn't he always falling in love with redhead people?
Yeah.
He was always
Yeah,
falling
well,
in
women.
love.
Yeah.
He took Poirot for a break, and it was a golf hotel because
Right.
he wanted to play golf. And when he was getting the luggage out the car, he got his golf clubs out, and Poirot was like, "You did not tell me about this, Hastings." I thought I'd have a couple of rounds of golf while I'm here.
Talking about Poirot, I think it was quite obvious that, you know, we've said in the past in previous episodes that Agatha Christie didn't like Poirot.
No.
You know, she wanted to kill him off early on, and
Yeah.
she had to bring him back because of the readers. I get the impression that she did like Miss Marple.
Yes.
You know, there's
Yes.
a real difference between the characters. You know, the one she liked and was quite happy for her to go on ad infinitum, whereas Poirot was that nasty little man that she seemed to want to get rid of. But the readers wouldn't let her.
No, really
Or the
irritated
publishers
her.
wouldn't let her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the readers would be onto the publishers, so it's
the publishers were thinking about the money.
of course they were, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, what's your favourite Miss Marple?
I think a murder is announced.
Now remind me, what's the plot of that one?
Basically, somebody sends out invitations.
Oh yes, and they
that
got
a murder's going to take place.
They got on a coach or something and go off somewhere. Was it that?
No,
one?
it was at somebody's house.
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
that
then all these
was
people
another one.
turn up, and she's like, "What the? What's
And they're all
going
wondering
on?"
why they've been invited.
Yes, like
yes.
what's going on? Is this some sort of joke? And
Yeah.
then the lights go out, and dun dun dun.
Somebody disappears.
Yeah,
Oh.
but that was I thought a good one.
Yeah.
So-
No, I mean, I like them all and I could watch them again and again. And I don't really mind which actresses and actors out there who plays her, because all the ones I've watched I've had a pin down, you know.
I probably should have watched more Marples, but I've only really seen Joan Hickson.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that I thought was really strange was, I remember my husband telling me about some he'd seen that he really liked. And in those, Miss Marple was played by Margaret Rutherford.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I've got
Yes.
Margaret Rutherford down
Yes,
here.
I remember Margaret Rutherford.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
going back a while, isn't
But
it?
it just, I don't know, I was looking at some of the footage, I was like, this just doesn't seem right. Sort of, comedy tiptoeing around and, hiding behind things where you could quite clearly see she was. I was thinking Miss Marple would never do this.
No, but she
And it just felt like she was played for laughs, so I don't think I
Yes.
would have got on with that one.
No. I have watched one or two of those, and I agree. If I had to pick out one that I didn't like, it would be, with respect to Margaret, I didn't think she played.
Well, I imagine it was a vehicle for her rather than, we're going to be really, really faithful too.
Yeah.
And I suppose, like other things, sometimes if you kind of try and forget that it's supposed to be this person, you can enjoy it on its own terms. But
Yeah. And you'll always get people who follow a certain actor. They'll go and see whatever they do.
Exactly, yeah. So why do we think that Miss Marple is so popular and so iconic?
It's funny, I've just been looking at the list of the books that she's in, Miss Marple.
There's about 12, aren't there?
There's about 12.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we were saying about that intrigue behind her background, this sort of more of an upper class background. And you've got The Body in the Library, and the library is at Colonel Bantry's house. So she'd obviously got invited to there.
I remember
That's
that
the thing,
one.
I suppose it's quite often very country housey,
Oh,
isn't it?
yes. Yeah.
So you get to do all of that and meet all these people with jewels.
Lovely dresses and everything.
Yes.
The mirror cracked from side to side. Where,
That is another fun one.
Yeah, after a local woman dies at a party thrown by a famous actress. So again, she's invited to this.
Yeah, wasn't Liz Taylor in the film of that?
Was she?
Oh, yeah. So it was proper, all-star vehicle.
Oh,
yeah. Caribbean Mystery, where she's on holiday.
That's
with
the
Caribbean.
one, yeah.
At Bertram's hotel. Staying at a London hotel, Miss Marple uncovers a crime ring.
Of course she does.
She stays at, she's invited to very posh parties. She stays at posh hotels and goes on character. So, there is that all the way through. This is a lady of means in terms of financial means.
Or she knows
people
with means.
And they put her
And
up.
quite often it's, someone's given her a present or a little treat or something like
or
that.
invited her to a party.
She'd go to a spa these days, wouldn't she?
She probably would,
yeah. I don't think you'd see her on Love Island, though.
No, probably not. No. Last week, I read out chapter 1 of Carol's first draft. If you're interested, you can go to the blog, which the link is below, and listen to the next chapter being read out. Comments and feedback would be appreciated. Mike, you're going to work magic on these, aren't you? Just explain to the listeners what's going to happen.
Okay, what I'm doing is I am taking each of the chapter and putting it into AI to get it to create an audio of Carol's reading, or writing rather. And what I'll do is I'll put that up on the blog and invite you to give some feedback, because what Carol wants is as she said before, this is very much a draft, and she wants feedback from people so that she can keep changing things as she goes along, and your help will be very much appreciated.
So we're sort of co-writing it in the end. So it's a bit of an experiment, and as I say, I hope people will take part.
Yeah.
So,
but there will be links so you can find it on the blog, and there'll be links at the end of this podcast episode as well to our blog.
Right. So thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Liz, and we'll draw that to a close for this week. We'll speak to you all again this time next week. So bye for now. You have been listening to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production, produced by John Bissett. The music in Peril was composed and recorded by OM Studio Strings.